Here we go. Welcome to Double Dribble Bucks. This is Seth. With me, as always, is my good friend Brett. How you doing tonight, Brett?
I'm doing great. The Bucks are on a hot streak, so obviously we're winning the title all this year, and yeah, can't wait.
Excellent. For anyone viewing on video, I just want to say in advance that this is a hooded sweatshirt, not a cardigan. We just had a big conversation about it, and just want to get that out there up front. You know, I'm 44. I'm not 64. I'm not sure. I just wanted to get that out there.
Yeah. I'm sure everybody's talking about it. It's obviously the first thing that I thought of, so anybody else is like, whoa. So I'm glad he cleared the air. That's very important. Nice job.
Yeah. Okay, well, the Bucks have been great. It's been good. You know, it's kind of up and down. We get on these podcasts. Sometimes it's they're on a roll. Sometimes it's been kind of disappointing, like what's going on. So we're in a good streak right now. 7-1 since the All-Star break, 10-3 since the Kuzma trade. And I think we last talked during the All-Star break, I believe. So they're 7-1 since we last talked.
Which I will point out, by the way, last time we talked, we were going into a 3-game series, and I correctly predicted that we would go 3-0.
That's
and
right.
You thought we might only win that Wizards game, and so here we are. So I guess I'm not saying that just to prove that I was right, which is part of it, but I think most people probably thought the same way you did, that there's, this is classic Bucks team, the highs and the lows, like you should win against the Wizards, but you probably won't, and you'll probably lose the other games. So collectively, though, I think this team is starting to prove people wrong.
They definitely are doing that. And yeah, it felt like I don't know if we were playing 500 ball or if we were actually worse than 5. I guess I'd have to go back and look, but like the previous 10, 15 games, it didn't feel good. Maybe we had higher expectations, but kind of felt like one step forward, 2 steps back a little bit as we would lose these games that we shouldn't be losing. And so that was kind of my mindset at that time. And I'm really glad the Bucks have taken this jump and playing much better, playing a little bit different. And yeah, I guess what are your thoughts here after this 7-1 run? Why do these new guys work? It seems to be working. I'm giving them credit that it is working. It's partially because of them. Do you agree with that? And if so, why? What is it exactly that's working?
So first things, like when you're watching these games, it's a weird feeling because you'll have a lineup where a bunch of guys that haven't been Bucks for a long time are all playing together. Like you got a lineup that's got KPJ, Kuzma, Sims, Prince, and Trent. And you're like, what am I looking at? Like, I think a lot of people are just like, what is happening? And you'll see people online, they're like, you have Giannis and Dame both sitting, like, are you crazy? But then you start watching the game and it's like, okay, well, they're either hanging in there or playing well. So let's just keep doing it. So as I'm watching the most recent game, I started thinking about that. So it's like, okay, you start with KPJ, which we've already talked about before, is this guy that has this air of he's a bad seed, let's call it, right? Mm-hmm. So obviously he's had his own off-the-court issues that we talked about. We don't need to dive into it again. But, he didn't really stick with any teams. At this point, he's kind of flopping around the league. And what is this guy? Kyle Kuzma used to be like a laughing stock, or maybe he looked like he was just thought he was better than people, but he definitely had another sense that this guy is not really going to be anything, right? I'm going to throw Sims in there. I'm not saying he fits that mold, but he was pretty cast aside by New York. Like, yeah, whatever. We don't need this guy. So I'm starting to think, all right, why do you have all these guys that maybe have bad attitudes? Or, you look at KPJ getting teed up the other night and it's like, all right, like, do I really need a bunch of hothead guys that are arguing with the refs and this whole thing? But at the same time, it's working. And I start to look at, like, I expressed the reason that Kuzma might work was because Washington's so bad, like, get him out of there and see what you can actually get out of it. But I think that might be working for all these guys because you put these guys on the Wizards and that team is going to need a 30 for 30 about how did one team single-handedly destroy an NBA franchise, because I could just see it just becoming the worst thing ever. Must watch to see how many techs, who are they fighting, how is this thing imploding. But when you go to a team where you have Giannis and Dame, throw in Brooke, Bobby, and Pat, who've won championships, and then an old coach like Doc, you can't mess around. You can't be a hothead. You can't be this young guy that's like, yeah, I'll just do whatever I want. Because these guys will pull you aside and say, guess what? That doesn't happen. Like, you're either here to play basketball, or if you want to do this nonsense, like, go somewhere else and do that, because that's not what this is about. And, Bobby Portis really said this when he was talking about Kuzma, obviously before Bobby was, suspended. But it's like, you're in Milwaukee, man. Like, things are closed when the game's over. Like, you're not going out to the club. Like, you're not staying out till 3 a.m. Do those things exist? Of course they are, but that's not what's happening. Like, you're here to play basketball and you're here to win. And I'm starting to think that maybe these guys, like, see that. Like, hey, I'm just here to play basketball and that's what I do. And maybe that's why it's working.
Yeah, I think partially what you're saying is it's about fit. And
Yes.
I think a big thing, whenever the trade deadline's coming up and all the talk about who's going to be traded, it's always these big names. Jimmy Butler is going to be traded. Who's going to get him? Whatever. It's always about the big name players. But is that really what's going to make the team better? How many times now have we seen a big name player go from one team to another, and it doesn't work at all? I guess, off the bat, I'm thinking Bradley Beal. That's been a disaster. And so just because you're an all-star player, or, you get 25 to 30 points a game or whatever it is, just because you're one of these big name guys, even if you're really good, it doesn't mean that it's going to work. It's, you have to fit into the team. And for the Phoenix example is perfect, because Bradley Beal was like, they already had Bradley Beal. They have Devin Booker and they have Kevin Durant. Like, they're all like, jump shooting guards who don't play defense super effectively. And, they're all like pretty similar. KD is, I guess, a little different. He's taller, probably better on defense, but it was just like, you got the same guy at the same position like 3 times, basically. Like, that's not a team. You need a point guard. You need a big guy. You need a guy to play defense. Like, we're talking about Brooke. There's like limits to what he can do. You need a guy like Sims who can, cover at the perimeter and do other things with that size. So it's really about building a team. And that's what I love about what Horst did here, and what he's been doing is he doesn't, at least so far, it's, there's always talk, like he's talking about Bradley Beal and he's talking about getting Butler, and sure, maybe he did, but in terms of his actions, he's making smart moves, and he's thinking like, what's going to make this team a better cohesive unit that's going to win basketball games. And what we needed was speed and athleticism and rebounding and transition offense and defense. And, these are a number of the things that we needed. And for example, Chris Middleton, who's awesome. We love Chris Middleton, but those are all things he wasn't really providing that much of. And so you switch Middleton with Kuzma, and it's like, initially you're thinking like, that's bad. You have one of the most efficient basketball players in Chris Middleton, and you're going to switch him out with one of the most inefficient, Kyle Kuzma. Like, how's this going to work? And it does, and it works because he's a fit and I guess a big part of that is they accept their role. He understands he's not the number one guy. He's not the number 2 guy here, and he's not out there taking dumb shots like he was in Washington, where he could just do whatever he wants. There's like no consequences.
Yeah.
It doesn't even matter. And these guys want to win. They want to win. They have something to prove. KPJ, he said he's never been on a winning team. And he said he was like learning things just in the locker room, being around these guys. Like you were mentioning, like, you got Coach Doc, you got Giannis, guys who have won championships, and that matters, and it makes a difference, and it's a totally different environment in that locker room. And I think I think that's a big part of why they're succeeding, is that they're, it's a great culture that they're a part of, that some of these guys have not experienced, and they want to win. and so it's like, if I can play my role well, and if we can win, like, that's going to be awesome. And I want to win. Also, I'll probably get a better contract in the future. It's probably also good for me.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think just going along with what you said, I think it's been a great fit so far. And maybe I'll pass it to you. Like, what exactly is the fit? What are the things? I mentioned a couple of the things, but do you have anything to add as to like what Kuzma and Porter Jr. and Sims, what are they doing that we haven't been seeing before?
Well, the first thought I'm going to have right away is kind of what you were talking about. Is I wonder if the dream team ruined a little bit at the NBA, because it's like you put all these guys on a team and they were able to win dominantly, and so people are like, "Oh, that's the key. I'll just put together a super team and that'll work." But the reality is, there's really hasn't been a lot of super teams. Like, you can team up people. Like, it was a big deal for Oscar Robertson to come to Milwaukee to team up with Kareem. But there were other really good players there. Like, yeah, they're not going to be the face of the league, but it didn't work when Brooklyn tried to get all of the championship players from Boston. It hasn't worked for Phoenix for trying to take those types of things. So maybe that's part of it. But to your question, like, you know, we started the beginning of the year where Gary Trent Jr. wanted to get this big contract, didn't have any takers, so he's like, I'm going to go to Milwaukee, I'm going to prove myself. Well, maybe some of these guys are having that same thing. Like, KPJ is like, I haven't been able to get a fair deal in this league for lots of reasons. But here I go. Let me just show that I can play and have a role and really step up and maybe prove myself. Kuzma, I think, is at that point where he's like, I went from being a great guy in LA that won a championship to getting this big contract in Washington, and then everyone thought I was a joke. Like, here's my chance to prove, no, I'm a good player. Like, I'm ready to go. But you know, the speed and the athleticism is a huge part of this. You know, one of the reasons that we talked a year ago was, look, the Pacers are killing us. Because you got guys, our number one target, Obi Toppin. Who's Obi Toppin? This guy coming in off the bench and he's making us look silly. Well, he's a very athletic guy. He's fast and he has a role. And then the Pacers, that's just what they look like. So we were getting old. We have Brook, who's playing phenomenal this year, but he's old. He's slow. That's just the way he is. Like, there's no knock on him. That's just his game. So if you can spell some of those minutes with a young athletic guy like Sims, who, yeah, he's going to make mistakes. He's not going to be perfect, but he learns from another 7-footer and throws in his own thing. You throw in KPJ, who is trying to be a playmaker. He does have a little bit of this, like, am I supposed to be shooting? Am I supposed to be dishing? But I think you live and die by kind of the way he plays. He's not getting 40 minutes, so it's not like I have to worry about this whole team falling apart. You know, when he gets his minutes, he's great. So I think that's a huge part of it. We can run quicker. You know, Dame is older, but Dame's a lot faster than a lot of guys. You know, and he doesn't have to be the quickest guy in there. But you put in some of these lineups, and that speed makes a huge difference. And then at the same time, you can allow Dame and Giannis to sit for longer periods of time because they're not needed to sit out there and just play until they're just run into the ground, especially this string right now where we got back-to-backs after back-to-back after back-to-back. So that's the biggest thing for me is athleticism and the ability to rest so that you're ready long-term.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely agree with all that. A couple of things that kind of specific things I've noticed is with Kuzma, he is so good at cutting to the basket at the right time. He'll see someone, maybe Giannis is down there with the ball, you know, people coming to double team him, triple team him, and he just at the perfect time makes that cut to where maybe the double team just came from. Giannis sees him, gives it to him, he's got a layup or a dunk. And he, you know, it's like, it seems so simple. Like, why doesn't everybody just do that? You know, why isn't like why hasn't that been happening before? But you know, certain guys are good at that, and a lot of guys just don't really do it. Honestly, like honestly, PC is probably before Kuzma, PC is probably the best guy on the Bucks who would do that, who would cut to the basket. A lot of guys don't do that, you know, and especially in this modern era, and they're all sitting at the 3-point line just waiting to get a pass to shoot a 3-pointer. So they're not even it's not even something that they're thinking about, like cutting to like AJ Green cutting to the basket. It's just not something he's going to do. You know, maybe every once in a great while, but so that, you know, he does that a lot, and that it really stands out, and it works a lot. So that's awesome. And with KPJ, it's like he's been so good. I'm actually like really surprised at how good he's been. I love him off the bench as kind of like a 6-man type of a guy because he is like a shot creator. You know, he's not necessarily the best shooter. You know, I don't even know if he's really taken that many like 3-pointers. But he just kind of weaves his way to the basket. He has good patience, and he just kind of finds his way in there to get like a 12-foot shot that he's a really high percentage on that shot. And it works, and it's really awesome for like a second unit to just have that guy come in, give Dame a rest. He doesn't have to create something. Give Giannis a rest. He doesn't have to do everything on offense. And so that was one of the big worries about losing Middleton. Who's going to be the guy? Basically it was like, I guess Bobby Portis is that guy, which sometimes is good, but sometimes sucks. And then he's gone for 25 games. So it's like, who's it going to be? But KPJ has really stepped up in that to fill that role that we need for 10 minutes a game, whatever it is. So that's been awesome. And honestly, between him and Sims, they kind of have something going. Like there's been a few of those pick and roll alley oops, which Sims is known to be good at, but you need a guard to be able to throw that pass. And Kevin Porter Jr. has that connection with Sims that just seems to be getting better over time. So I don't know if that unit is going to continue into the playoffs. But if they keep playing like this, I think Doc's going to have to. But maybe that kind of leads into maybe my next question is the 7-1 run coincided with that Bobby suspension. And it also coincided with Ajax getting benched. I don't think he's played a real minute since then. Do you think it's just a coincidence? We just happen to be 7-1, because of these other, not because they're not playing? Or do you think Ajax not playing and or Bobby not playing maybe is somewhat beneficial?
I think it's hard to say that it's not beneficial just because it has been working the way it is. I think that Doc is kind of growing as a coach. I think he, being an old coach, number one, he has a different way of looking at the game. Like, new coach is always going to try to do something new and unique and trying to be like, hey, the league is a 3-point shooting team. That's what we're going to do. We've talked about this before. People are willing to give up the layup, but they don't want to give up the three. Well, and then you look at it, and Dame is driving a lot more. Kuzma, to your point, driving a lot more. Hey, give us points. Points is the money ball part of this whole thing. Like, points is better than shot attempts. So it's like, I'll take whatever I can get.
Yes.
So, in a way, you have to say it's good just because the record is the way it is. I think Bobby is so good that when he comes back, I'm very excited to hope that very excited to hope. I'm hopeful that he fits in well with this new group because he is a good scorer. He is somebody that brings a lot of energy. A second unit that's got Bobby, KPJ, Sims, and then go from there. Like that's a lot of energy. That's a lot of enthusiasm that's coming out that's going to help the team a lot. Ajax is young. I mean, there's not many guys that honestly can come in and get real minutes on their rookie and second year contracts, especially when they're a second round pick. Like, you really got to hustle and you got to learn. And he had minutes, he had starting opportunities, so there's something there. But at the same time, we have to win now. Like, we just don't have the time to develop. If he was just a development player, he'd have more time and we'd kind of live and learn by this kind of stuff. But it's like, your minutes in the role that you have got to make those be incredibly efficient. I mean, the last game, AJ Green, who we love, started out cold. And that was a real, kind of scary moment, I imagine, because it's like, look, man, the only reason you're getting minutes is because you can come in here, play decent defense, and make a shot when we need you to. If you can't make a shot, I don't need you that bad. Like, you're not that great at defense. You're not great at all these other things. Like, you got to make the shot. So when he started out cold, it was like, oh, man, you're kind of on a cold spell. Like, you got to get this fixed. So, having Ajax ride the bench, I think it's going to be good for him. He's going to have other guys to learn from. He's going to be able to see whatever KPJ puts out there every day. I truly think there are plenty of guys in the league that are great athletes, natural ability. They could go out there, they just run faster, jump higher than everybody. But if they're not putting in any work, they're not going to be a great professional. Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, were they the best athletes of all time? I don't know. Probably not. but they probably put in more work than anybody else before them, which is what made them great. That's the type of thing. Ajax has a ton of ability, but he's got to figure out the other aspects to that. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue that it's not a good thing for them to be out while this is happening and then find a way to come back in. They're professionals. They'll find a way to make it work.
Yeah, I'll come back to Ajax in a minute. We'll start with Bobby. I mean, one thing, the main question I have with Bobby is how is it going to affect Sims? We traded for Sims, and he did not play the first 5 games that we had him. 0 minutes. Nothing. When you first get him, like the first game you get a guy, you think, okay, maybe he just flew in here and he's tired. You're not going to play him. He didn't play Sims for 5 games. I mean, I was upset. I was like, what's going on here? Like, we got this guy, the type of player we all wanted. We played Golden State. We played Golden State in that stretch. How does he not get a minute against Golden State? I don't know. So it was like, what's going on here? Okay, then Bobby suspended 25 games. Doc is forced to play Sims because we don't really have another big guy. So honestly, I think Bobby getting suspended was a blessing in disguise here, because I'm afraid that Doc never was really going to play Sims. And if he was, maybe it was going to be too late. Like, let's get him going so he gets comfortable on this team, before the playoffs. So obviously he has been playing since the All-Star break. And, like I said, him and KPJ have kind of a good chemistry going. And Sims has had some moments on defense that are just awesome. Some big blocks, some guarding at the perimeter and not letting the guy get past him. So I've been pretty impressed, and he needs minutes in the playoffs. And I guess I'm a little worried that he's not. I'm hoping that he just totally impresses Doc these 25 games to the point where Doc has to play him. And I guess I'm curious how those rotations would go. But one thing it makes me think is right now, Kuzma is kind of getting taken out of the starting lineup a little bit early because Doc wants to give him a little bit of rest so that he can play with Sims in the second unit. And so maybe he doesn't have to do that so much if the starters are really doing really well together, which so far they are. I think they're plus, I have it here somewhere, plus 16.6 for that starting unit and 211 possessions. So if we want to maximize that starting unit, then Bobby could be alongside Sims as opposed to Bobby being the 5. So maybe that's something that Doc is going to do. And Bobby's, I hope Bobby's not going to get as many minutes as he was getting, now that we have Kuzma, now that we have Sims. And then we have KPJ, who's able to get us those baskets. So we're not going to be so reliant on Bobby as a scorer, I don't think. But I'm curious. So I'm hopeful that, kind of like you, I'm hoping that it gets figured out, that it's not a problem. I guess the main concern I have that he doesn't just get rid of this whole the Sims thing that he has going and the KPJ Sims thing. And I'm a little, Doc's been weird with rotations. And maybe that's just because we didn't have the players, because in the past 8 games, the rotations have made sense for the first time all season. And so maybe that's just a matter of roster. And now we finally have pieces that fit. So I guess we'll see with Bobby. But Bobby's really good. It's I don't think he's bad. I don't think we don't want him at all. I don't think he's going to have the same role, though. And I wonder how that's going to go, I guess.
Well, I mean, we went from earlier in the year talking about how we had Brooke and Bobby and really no other bigs. Your boy Liam Robbins is not going to do anything. It's just not going to happen. But since the trade deadline, we now have a 7-footer in Brooke. Sims, I think, is a 7-footer. And then you got Bobby and Kuz, who are 6'10", pretty damn close. And then you throw in Giannis, who's his own thing at 6'11". Yeah. Well, holy shit, we got a bunch of big dudes now. And then it's like, okay, well, what kind of guards you got? Oh, well, we got Dame, AJ Green, Gary Trent Jr. We got a lot of great shooters. And then you put in, KPJ, who is an elevated version of Ajax in the sense that he comes in with this energy, plays great defense, but also has way better offensive ability. We're starting to have what the basis of a lineup that you could throw in almost any other team And it's like, okay, you're a big lineup. We got enough big guys that we can keep throwing at you to tire you out. You got a smaller team. We got a bunch of young guys that we can throw out there, and then big guys that you're not going to be able to drive on us. Like, I think we're starting to gel to have something here, and I think that's something that, we talked earlier, like, why is Doc playing Bobby and Brooke at the same time? That doesn't make any sense because Bobby was kind of the backup big when Brooke was going down. Well, now you have the ability to mix up a lot of stuff. You got a Bobby Kuz switch, which they're the same size guy, and then you have two bigs in Brooke and Sims that are about the same size guy. It really opens up a lot of opportunity to mix around some things. I think your idea of a small ball lineup is probably gone. Although just even the other night we had Giannis with Dame, KPJ, AJ Green, and Prince as the four. So I mean that was
Really?
pretty close. Yeah, it was pretty close. Yeah, so I mean he's trying some stuff. So I don't know. Maybe you're right. I think you might have hit on something that maybe it was just the lineup that we just didn't have to be able to do the things he wanted to do.
Yeah, and by the way, the starting lineup, TP at the 2, I still don't understand. I mean, it's working so far.
Yeah.
200 plus possessions, and we're plus 16.6. I guess I can't complain, but that is weird. I'm assuming it's going to continue, so I guess that's just how it is. And if it works, then I'll be fine with it. But somehow TP has the second worst net rating on the team, which is just odd. I don't understand it. Because he doesn't even seem like he's not. He seems pretty good. Seems like he's helping the team. He makes a ton of threes still. I guess I don't know his percentage, but I assume it's over 40% still. But that's just funny that I think he's 6'7", 6'8", maybe.
Yeah,
he's at least 6'6".
Yeah. Yep.
So it's just funny to have him started at the 2 when you have two of the top 20 3-point shooters and more traditional shooting guard, Gary Trent Jr. and AJ Green. It's like those guys aren't starting. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
And you'd think TP would be like a 3 in the second unit or something like that. But anyway, it's working so far, so that's good.
Yeah, that's good.
We're going to take a mailbag question, early one.
Awesome.
We got a few questions from Ashley, and one of the questions was pertaining to Ajax, so I thought it was a good time to throw it in here. With Ajax lack of playing time, Seth, are you doing okay? Just wanted to check in on you. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Ashley. I felt bad for Ajax because he went to that All-Star game, had a pretty bad dunk contest. I don't think as bad as the Chicago player, whoever that. No one knows who that guy is.
Yeah.
So that's worse. But
that was worse.
But he was totally outdone by the Castle. Was just awesome.
Yeah.
And McClung, it was like his third one. Of course, he's going to be there. But his teammate in college, Castle, so much better at the dunk contest than Ajax. So that was kind of disappointing. That was just like, that's too bad. And then he gets back to Milwaukee, and he hasn't played a real minute since then. So it's just, it wasn't, initially it's like, I'm going to the All-Star weekend. I'm in the dunk contest. Like, things are looking great for me. And then it's like a quick nosedive down.
Very quick, yeah.
Kind of back to where you were a year ago, So I'm doing okay because the Bucks are doing great. They, in the 7-1 run, they are the third best defense in the league. And so Ajax, what he brings is defense. So, I mean, I can't really be upset that he's not playing if we're going to have the number 3 defense in the league with him not playing. If that changes, then I guess I'd probably be calling for Ajax, or, maybe there's certain moments where I'm going to want him to be in there, like, a few minutes here and there to full court press, SGA or something like that. I think makes a ton of sense in the playoffs. And I think I could see Doc doing that. I don't think he's going to completely forget about him. And then, and we kind of talked about it last time. I think KPJ in a way kind of feels like the replacement. Even though KPJ is a scorer, much more so, he kind of has that defensive prowess that Ajax has a little bit, and it feels kind of like he kind of replaces that. But if you're going to kind of replace that and then also get a guy who can totally create his own shot and actually be pretty good at it and make some clutch shots against Minnesota and have a fourth quarter with like 13 points the other day, I mean, that's I have
a
to
triple
admit,
double.
that's
Yeah, on top of
a
it.
triple double in 20 minutes. So that's good. That's probably better than what Ajax was doing. I can't complain too much about that. So if the Bucks are going to be awesome, if KPJ is going to play like that, Ajax can learn on the bench and hopefully, help the team when he's called. And hopefully that does happen. I definitely want to see him have real minutes from time to time, but it makes sense that he's not in the full rotation. You can't have 12 guys in the rotation. I mean, at some point, someone just is going to go to the bench. That's just going to happen. And honestly, when we get to the playoffs, it's probably going to be a shorter rotation. And that's kind of like, how many minutes is Bobby going to get? How many minutes is KPJ going to get? Some of these guys aren't going to get it that many minutes playoff time. So, yeah, I guess I'm doing okay. And he's, like you said, he's young. He's got his whole future ahead of him. He's got to work on his offensive game. And I assume we have 2 more years of him on like a rookie contract.
Yeah.
So, maybe next year he steps up and gets back into the starting lineup at some point.
And he could always, like, this year have a very, like, specific role. Similar sports that are fast-paced, like hockey and soccer, have guys that come in and they're the enforcers. Like, we don't care if they get penalty minutes or whatever, because their job is to go out there and disrupt something. So I could easily see Ajax being like, look, if you're not going to fit in with real minutes here, like if we're getting burned by Brunson again or, Halliburton or any of these guys, like I'm just going to throw Ajax on there, whether it's 5 minutes or 15 minutes. But it's like, go out there, be all over that guy, annoy the shit out of him. I don't care if you get teed up, fouled out. I don't care about this stuff. Like, I prefer if you don't get teed, but I don't care if you go in there, play 5 minutes and get 5 fouls. Like, if you get in there and disrupt his rhythm, get in his head, do whatever you need to do for a couple minutes, that's a win. So maybe there's something there. So as long as you're doing okay, though, I'm happy.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, well, we can take another Ashley question here. I think it's a good time for it. She had 3 questions. The other one she has is not so serious, but this one's a Bucks real serious question. What's the biggest challenge the Bucks need to overcome in the playoffs, and how can they address it before the postseason arrives?
Ooh, that is a very good question. If I can go first, I'll think that the most obvious thing is we have to get over injuries, because it's what derailed us the last 2 years. It's not a very great answer, but that's the reality. We lost Giannis and Dame last year. We put a lot on Chris. He did what he could. Giannis and Dame couldn't come back and do enough. The year before that, we dealt with some injuries too. So that's the most obvious thing. But I'm going to go another direction, and as long as we can continue to find ways for the vets and the young guys to work together, that's the big selling point. KPJ, Kuzma, younger guys that have in past lives had to be the playmaker, had to be the main guy. I want the ball when the time is running out and we need a big shot, like, give it to me. That's my role. And if they can understand that is not their role here, that's going to be a huge factor in being able to overcome those playoff minutes. Go out there, give us huge minutes, be able to do what KPJ did the other night, where it's like, yeah, we'll give you 15, 20 minutes and go out there and do a triple-double for us. Like, do something crazy like that. The other thing I'm going to add there is I want to see Dame show up for the playoffs. This is something that this guy has been looking for his whole life, to be on a championship contending team. Now, when he was with Portland, he had opportunities. It's not like he'd never sniffed success, but it's like, you are now on a team. Your role is carved out. Like, you're the number 2 guy behind Giannis. You have to be able to run this whole team either through him or without him. And so that's where I'm going to go. Is my other thought is I want to be able to see Dame be able to step up in the playoffs, really rise to the occasion, and be like, this is exactly why I'm here. This is what I can bring, and this is where we go.
Yeah, I'm going to run with that for my answer. Kind of connected with Dame needing to step up. The Bucks in the clutch have the second worst offense in the NBA this season so far, and the second best defense. So that's, first of all, like, would you ever have thought that?
No,
I mean,
never.
it's unbelievable. But that's what it is so far. And we've played, I don't know, we played 50 games, whatever we played. A lot of games so far. And that's the stat. We suck at offense in the clutch. I don't. It's hard to believe, but that, I think, is really a key thing that we need to figure out before the playoffs come. The defense is apparently figured out. Don't lose that. Keep being really good on defense. But on offense, you have to be better than 29th in the last, whatever clutch stands for. I think within 5 points in the last 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is. I guess the thing I would point to with, like, what does that mean? What can they do? I think run Dame and Giannis pick and roll over and over and over again. Like, just do that all the time. They do it sometimes, but it's too often that it's isolation. It was just the other, I don't know if it was last game or 2 games ago, but I recall Giannis just going isolation 2 or 3 possessions in a row and not scoring on any of them. I think turning it over on one of them. And then, like, before and after that, it was pick and rolls, which were being effective. Like, one of the pick and rolls I can think of was pick and roll, Dame passed it to Giannis, and then he got double teamed, and Giannis passed it to Brook for a dunk. So it's like, it's not even like just those two are involved, but that opens up other things. Maybe you get a wide open 3 for AJ Green or TP or whoever. Like, that is, you have 2 of the best offensive players in basketball, and you're running a pick and roll. It's like you're making it difficult on the defense. Like, that's what's happening here. It's good for you typically. Like, if you can get to that point, if they're not blitzing Dame and he has to get rid of it, and you're kind of like messing up our offense, that's maybe another issue that we should have a plan for and really figure it out and tell Brook not to take that 30-foot shot. But we have to get better on offense, period. But we really have to get better on offense in the clutch. So I'd say hopefully they're practicing. They're really thinking about that. They're putting a lot of focus on that. But yeah, I'm saying a little bit less isolation, a little bit more pick and roll with your 2 best players.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think Dame and Brook have been doing the pick and roll more, or at least it just definitely
in general,
seems like
yes.
it. Yeah. So, and I think that, it's working in the sense that, Brook is the best shape he's been in a very long time. I think we talked about it before. He said he's down to like 7% body fat. You see him doing a lot more, and his body is not built to be an athletic big. It's to be a old school big, maybe is the way to look at it. Like more rim protector, more, set up your shot versus, shot creation. Giannis and Brook are almost the same size, but they are nowhere near the same type of basketball player at all. It's not even comparable. So yeah, I completely agree. That'd be definitely something to see. It's really about getting this team ready for the playoffs, and I think that the other part is it's Doc. Like, Doc has a lot of pressure on him, whether he likes it or not, to be, look, man, you won a championship, you failed elsewhere, and we've talked about this on old episodes that not necessarily entirely his fault, but here's your opportunity to, like, a lot of things are working for you. You were pulled out of a broadcasting booth to come over here and fix this team. People want us to be OKC and be, 10 games ahead of the next team. That's not the case. We're looking at maybe the 4th seed. The East is tougher than I think a lot of people think. But this is Doc, where you got to show that you're a great coach in the playoffs and be able to kind of make some corrections.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Great questions. We still got one more coming later from Ashley. But yeah, before we get there, I'll let you take over the show. I think you had a couple things you wanted to go with.
So a little lighthearted, but I was looking at our best friend Thanasis, who is becoming quite the podcaster. But the reality is he's still a basketball player. So I'm going to ask you a question, Seth. What do you think is the most likely to happen? Okay? Option 1, Thanasis comes back to Milwaukee next year, because that's just the way it is, right? if Giannis is going to be happy and he wants his brother here, like, we'll find a roster spot for him. Even if we win it this year, even if we go to the finals and we lose by 1 game and Thanasis is ready to play basketball, like, we'll find a way to do it. Here's option 2, okay? And this is what I think that potentially could happen. Thanasis and the Bucks, Thanasis is re-signed by the Bucks. However, almost immediately, he has a medical issue come up. Okay?
Okay.
We don't think his Achilles is healed or whatever it happens to be. And we reach a retirement settlement with Thanasis. Allows him to get paid one more time, right? Hey, Giannis, we're paying your brother one more time. But it also ensures that he does not play for any other team in the league. And you might laugh at that to think who he wants to get Thanasis on their team. But let's remember, the Knicks made a big push to try to sign Thanasis, thinking if we can promise you minutes, if we could promise you a better role, you are going to want to play with your brother. And that's how we're going to get Giannis to come to New York. We've talked about this 1,000 times. All media is going to be talking about where's Giannis going to go if the Bucks don't win. He's ready. Giannis comes out and says, you're going to have to force me out of Milwaukee. I'm not going anywhere. And twice today I read stories about Giannis getting traded. Like, I
that
mean,
same day that Shams had some stupid story. Yeah,
exactly. So I'm thinking there might be something to that. If you could create a deal, I don't know what a retirement thing is. Think of the Bobby Bonilla deal in baseball. Not that much money by any stretch, but you make some sort of little sweetheart deal with Thanasis to be like, hey man, like, come on. We really need a team that doesn't have you on there. Not that you're not great, not that you're a great presence on that bench, but let's be honest, we have other needs for you. But at the same time, we cannot have you be a potential free agent that might impact our star player. So, very long-winded question. What are your thoughts?
it's a great question because that's something we have to think about. He's hurt this season, so it wasn't an option.
Right.
You know, it was like easy. Okay, yeah, we don't need to put him on the roster. We have a freed up a roster spot for us. Next year, assuming he wants to play, he's going to be there. Or, you know, what are we going to do?
Right.
And if you look at our current roster, Ryan Rollins is the last guy on the roster. You know, maybe people would argue PC might be the worst player, or I'm not sure. I mean, but and just compare this to where we were even at the beginning of the season. It was like, yeah, Beauchamp's on the roster. I mean,
yeah.
He's not good, right? Last year we had, who did we have? I think, gosh, I'm blanking on who we had, but we had a guy or two who would never would play. You know, and Thanasis, I guess, is one of those guys.
Gallinari was getting real minutes.
Yes, he was good for that game.
Right.
But I would say this is the deepest roster the Bucks have had that I can remember, really. And so are we going to give up one of those guys? Like, you know, I'm sure we'd be fine losing PC, but you can't just lose him. And I think he's an awesome veteran presence. Like, if he's the last guy on my bench, I kind of like that. I mean, I don't want to pay him $9 million, but it's not like he's a detriment to the team. Like, he's pretty good. Honestly, he's a pretty solid guy to throw in there when you need him. Like, he's actually kind of awesome. But,
he's a champion. He knows the culture. He knows the Milwaukee way of life. He can help these young guys to the point of Bobby earlier. Don't go out in Milwaukee. There's nothing. You're not missing anything. Just go to bed.
And so, but are you going to give up Pat just to get Thanasis then? You know, I don't that seems not cool. You know, does Giannis? He probably wouldn't even be happy about that. He probably loves Pat. So to answer your question, I think what's more likely of those two things, I guess what's more likely is that we sign him and somehow get out of it. Like you were a medical emergency, whatever it is, he retires or something. Because at this point, it's hard for me to see the Bucks using him as a roster spot. And I remember talking a year ago, or maybe the beginning of the season, where we were like, yeah, who cares? Who cares? The 12th spot on the roster, the last spot, whatever it is, like, put him on. Doesn't matter. And now it's like, I don't know. We have a lot of good players there. We have our one of our two rookies. It's like, you don't want to get rid of both of those guys. So it's just hard it's hard to fill the roster at this point. So I guess it depends what happens in free agency and all that, but I would think that they would want to have a legitimate roster. And he should be a coach. He seems like an awesome assistant coach.
Yeah.
So that would be the route. I mean, he's barely like, is he in the NBA if he's not Giannis's brother? Like, how good is he?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can make jokes all you want, but I mean, it's the Brian Scalabrine argument over again, where people are like, this guy sucks. He's the worst player in the league. And then he just goes out and schools people all day. Like, yeah, I'm still in the NBA. Like, I have no worries about getting a contract in the NBA. I'm that good. But, as fans are like, oh, who's this guy? Right. But I mean, there's something there.
Yeah, exactly. So, so I think it's more likely that somehow we figure something out for him to be a part of, to him to get paid, I guess, is a big part of this. But also to be a part of basketball, is it an assistant coach or what exactly is that role? But, there might be a part of it where I honestly definitely could see it where he's just like, I want to play basketball.
Yep.
And if he's like, if you're not going to sign me to play, then I'm going to see where else I can go. I mean, I think that's probably the most likely, is that he wants to play basketball if he can.
Yeah.
He'll see if he can get signed somewhere. And if that's the case, I'm guessing we take him. I'm guessing he uses up a roster spot.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's no answer, obviously, to this question.
So maybe,
that's definitely a start we think about.
Answer.
Yeah. It's something could happen there. I just want to touch on something, though, that you just point out, because we touched on this a little bit, but think back to the trade deadline. We lost our number 1 draft pick to A.J. Johnson, Chris Middleton, Beauchamp, who was another first-round pick, and Bucks fans were like, what the hell is this franchise doing? What is this franchise doing? Beauchamp, A.J. Johnson, Chris Middleton, are you idiots? And to your point, like, you never really felt great about most of those guys getting on there. Outside of Middleton, of course, but we've talked about before, Middleton was getting older. He's just not the same type of player before. Like, maybe this can be a little bit of a wake-up call for Bucks fans to be like, you know what? Like, I understand you want the same guys to be on the team for your entire life. From rookie to retirement, that would be amazing. It's not going to happen. So get used to the fact that, I don't think you wasted a draft pick with A.J. Johnson, because it was able to get you the pieces that got you to where you're at now. 7-1 run in the last 8 games. Number 3 defense. I don't think you would have been able to do that on a lot of other cases. So I just want to kind of close that loop a little bit to what you were saying, that like, it was not that long ago that we were looking at this bench thinking, man, I don't know. There's a lot of guys that I don't want to rely on later. Whereas now, if the worst guy on our team happens to be PC, that's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. A mini tangent here, kind of harkening back to what we were saying earlier about getting big name players. There was a lot of talk on Twitter about, yes, let's get Jimmy Butler. We need 36-year-old Jimmy Butler, and we need him, which means signing him for 2 more years at the max. That's what you want? Okay. Or we want Bradley Beal. I can't believe real people were actually talking about Bradley Beal. Like, they must not know anything about the NBA. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But there was talk about Bradley Beal. I forget who else, but I'm sure there were other kind of like big name guys that just don't really make sense. And Jimmy Butler kind of makes sense as a player, but he's 36. Like, do we want to get older? Do we want to get more, injuries? And like, is he going to be able to play in the playoffs? And just, thank you, Horst, for not succumbing to that and just building a team. And by the way, getting younger, faster, more athletic. Like, these are all the things that we've all talked about for the past 2 years. And it's like, that's exactly what you did.
Yeah.
Like, okay, great. Like, that makes sense. So yeah, it's like these big names just always get in the way, and just let's not be dumb. Don't be, it's like a dumb NBA owner. It's like, oh yeah, what's that name? Oh yeah, he was good 10 years ago. He must still be good. Let's throw our whole franchise for him. It's like, thankfully we don't have that guy as our owner or GM.
Well, it's the talk of Dallas right now, that the Dallas GM, who we all know what's going on with that, but the rumor is that he wants to go all in on Kevin Durant this summer. Okay.
Oh, is that? Okay, well,
that's the rumor. I guess. Yeah. So it's like, okay, so I want to have a Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, Klay Thompson, and Kevin Durant. Wow, that sounds great. what year is it? Is it 2025, 2026? Are those guys old as shit? Can they not stay healthy? Case in point,
man.
this year, like, oh my God, like, you want us to get super excited? Hey, you know what? Next year, why don't we put LeBron with Chris Paul on the same team and throw in a bunch of other 40-year-olds?
Let's get Melo back.
Yeah, let's get Melo back. Like, I don't know how this could fail. These guys are top picks. They're all going to the Hall of Fame one day. How's this not? Oh, yeah, I forgot they're as old as I am. Like, come on. Like, this is just, it's ridiculous.
We already have a case study of this when Kevin Garnett went to the Nets along with like three other old guys.
Jason Terry, and Paul Pierce.
Paul Pierce,
yeah.
And it's like, yeah, they all were old. It's like, this is the end of their careers. They're not going to be that great anymore.
Yeah, and the Nets gave up like the next 5 years worth of first.
It was really bad. I mean, the Mavericks just gave up 25-year-old Luka Doncic, so it's not that much different, I guess.
Yeah, it's I don't know. Yeah, people are crazy. So here's my other little one for you. So you're watching the NBA, and every player has some sort of music, right? When something happens, right? And so Giannis, when he scores, they say Notorious, which is a Notorious B.I.G. song. But my question is, that song is famous for being Notorious B.I.G. and Puff Daddy, a.k.a. P. Diddy, a.k.a. Diddy. Are we to the point that maybe we should be considering a change? Do you think of Diddy when you hear that in any way, or do you only think of Notorious B.I.G.? Or are we so old that most people that hear that have no idea what that's even about? Like, do we even have to worry about it?
Yeah. Okay. I'm maybe in my own category of not even realizing that there was music for each player. Are you saying when like they make a basket and get fouled, they like play music for like 5 seconds or something? What's happening?
So I shouldn't say every player. Okay. I'm not going to say every player, but like Giannis, Chris Middleton,
Dame.
I'm sure Dame. I mean, he's new, so I don't know how that whole thing works. But when Giannis scores, they play like a snippet where it goes Notorious, and that's it.
Okay.
It's a 2-second part of a thing, but it's played over the in-house speakers. So you have to be listening for it when you're watching the broadcast. But if you go to a game, when we go, you'll be able to hear it. So the question, that's kind of where part of that comes from. So, maybe people that don't go to the games don't even know that, but yeah.
Yeah, I'll find out next week when we finally go to a game.
Yes.
Well, it's not Diddy, right?
Correct.
Like, was he on that track?
Yes.
Okay.
He was on all the tracks.
Oh.
Diddy was always like in the background going like, yeah. What?
Is he the one saying Notorious?
No, he's not. That's like a chorus. That's a chorus. So to be fair,
so he's a part of it.
Nobody's really saying it, but he very well could be part of that chorus. Let's say.
Okay. Well, I guess two things here. One, I think we're a little bit past, I don't know, cancel culture or whatever we're going to call this. I think maybe we're kind of past it a little bit, and people care less about being so worried that, I don't know, we're offending someone or we're giving, a stage to P. Diddy or something like that.
Yeah.
And then it not being specifically a P. Diddy song, definitely gives you that space to be like, well, it's not a P. Diddy track, per se.
Right.
So I don't think they need to change anything or worry about it, I guess. And I'm a 44-year-old white guy who didn't really listen much to that music, that genre. So I'm probably not the best person to ask either.
I think you're right. I think you are right. But it was something that popped up that I wonder how many people are like, "Ooh, I wonder if you should keep playing that or you should mix it up."
Do they play? I mean, is his music played? Period.
That's a good question. I don't know.
It's so good that it's like we have to play it. I think that's my take.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I haven't really thought of, I guess I only listen to Spotify. I listen to my own music, so I guess I don't know. But I assume like Power was that maybe that might be a song that they would play at like a sporting event. There's got to be some Kanye song, and my guess is they still play it, but I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what songs are played at the game, and if we even have any idea what they are, or if they're all like right up for us. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
That's another pod. Old guys talking music. Join us next week for that one.
Okay, well, we have a couple more mailbag. Biggest mailbag episode by far. Thank you, Ashley and Kelly. Let's go to Kelly. Listener of the week, Kelly. She asks, after recent trades, it looks as if we have gained young, speedy talent and many more tattoos. Who on the Bucks do you think has the best tattoos?
It's a good question. So that's something that's very obvious when you watch these games. Most players either have tons of tattoos or no tattoos. There's not really a whole lot in between. I'm going to have to say Dame, and I'm only going to say Dame because I think Kuzma and Gary Trent Jr. both have the neck tattoo, which I am not a big fan of, the neck tattoo. Not for the old school reasons of how are you going to get a job and wear a suit with your tattoos poking out of your dress shirt, which would be great if that's what was my reasoning. But yeah, I just, as someone that has tattoos, you either go big or you don't. Like you just say, I'm just not going to get them. Or you get one and you stop, or else you just dive in and just go for it. But the neck, the upper, like just obvious all the time. Not my style. I think obviously the worst would be the top of the bald head tattoo. That's probably the worst one. But I guess Dames are pretty good. Seem to have potential meaning behind some of them. Kuzma, I'm not a big fan of those. That's where I'm gonna go.
Do you have any thoughts on KPJ? I don't think he has a neck tattoo, but he has sleeves basically.
Yeah, I mean that was probably gonna be my second guess because he is pretty tattooed, but mainly just the sleeves, which personally I'm a fan of. I'm double checking right now. I don't think he's got the necks.
One thing with KPJ is that I'm assuming that he had some tattoos that he regretted, and he basically blacked out one of his forearms, which I kind of think is kind of cool. But I think it just kind of turned into that because I think I read that he had tattoos and he covered them up by doing that it wasn't just like, this is my tattoo, the all black thing. But it's kind of cool. I don't know how many people do that, or maybe it's just a thing you fall into after you make mistakes with your tattoos, but kind of like it.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of filler stuff, a lot of like clouds, which I don't know if the clouds mean a lot or if they're just kind of like to fill in all the extra space. But yeah, I mean, they're pretty good. I bet you, I'd be willing to bet that AJ Green probably has like an ankle tattoo, something like a shamrock.
Oh, that's awesome. Or a cow, maybe a cow.
A cow, yeah.
A couple of others.
As a glass of milk. Glass of milk on his ankle.
That's a good tattoo. Dairy Boy should do that. Dairy Bird should do that.
Dairy Bird should do that.
I did have, I guess I did watch a video of Kuzma explaining his tattoos, although it was from 6 years ago, and a video of Dame, which is probably like 3 or 4 years old because he was in Portland at the time. But it was kind of cool. It does, I think you appreciate the tattoos a little bit more if you get to hear them, talk about what they are.
Sure.
And especially if, in fact, they do have, a lot of the tattoos that each of them do have a lot of meaning to them, whether it's like family or religion or their hometown. Like Dame has a lot of with like Oakland stuff. So just what's important to them, and then then they're putting it on their body to commemorate that and help them remember or whatever. So that was kind of cool. And actually, you mentioned clouds. Dame actually put some clouds like in between a couple of different things, just kind of like as filler.
Yep.
Early on in his tattoo journey, shall we say. And he said that at the end of it, he was like, the one thing that maybe I would do differently is that I wouldn't just do all these clouds, that I would have done something else. So he didn't really love the clouds that he did. Everything else he was pretty happy with. And some of his are kind of, I mean, I guess, I don't know tattoos that well. I don't have any. But I mean, one of them is like 4 faces of like people, like his grandma, his grandpa, a couple other people. So it's like 4 faces just like on his arm. And he made a comment like I look at him all the time, like, because like they look just like this. It's like, that seems kind of weird. Like, do I always want like someone basically looking at me every time I look at my arm? Like my mom's looking at me or something.
Yeah.
But I respect it and I appreciate that he has all these things that really mean something. So after watching the videos and look, I guess between those, I guess I appreciated both of them. I would say I'd go with Dame to answer Kelly's question. I'm also going to go Dame, and it's probably because, kind of like you, I think at this point, Kuz just has too many tattoos for me. For me, it does get to a point of that's kind of overload. It's just kind of like too many. I think there's like a sweet spot. And actually, when he did the video 6 years ago, maybe that was kind of a sweet spot. Like that was pretty good. He basically had sleeves, his whole chest, and he had like kind of the top of his legs. And now he's got like his whole legs, and he's got the neck, and he's it's like his whole body basically. So at least for me, I'm the guy to judge, of course. It's a little bit too many tattoos for Kuzma. And then KPJ, who knows what those tattoos mean? I don't know. I couldn't find a video. Considering he blocked half of his arm, I'm not so sure they're quite as important and meaningful. And Gary Trent Jr., I didn't think about it. I should have tried to find a video of his, but he does have a lot of tattoos.
He does have a lot.
When you're watching the game, like, I don't know it's hard for me to see what's going on there. So unless I find a video or like study a picture, which is kind of a weird thing for me to do, I don't know exactly what all the tattoos are.
Yeah, I'd be curious because, growing up, we didn't see nearly as many tattoos on players. Dennis Rodman was the exception. It's like, oh, this Dennis Rodman guy, like, oh my God, what's he doing? And nowadays, it's like, it's very common. I think it's almost going the opposite, where you're almost more surprised to see the guys that don't have them. But then you'll get guys that really surprise me, like Tatum and Luka are big into the back tattoo, really like covering every part of their back, but like not as much the rest of their bodies, which is a little surprising.
Interesting.
But yeah.
Some kind of psychoanalysis there, because like they can't see it.
Yeah.
But they want everyone else to see it when their shirt's off, I guess. I don't know. That is kind of like, you'd think, I'd say, I would think the typical person, you have a tattoo that you can see. Right? Sometimes. Just to remind yourself or, whatever the case might be. You want to enjoy it, I guess, at the very least. I got this tattoo. I want to enjoy the fact that this art is on my body. Right. If it's in like the middle of your back, you're never going to see it. It's true. Who knows what's back there? You have to just trust.
That's right. It's a lot of trust. That is a lot of trust. I hope that's what comes by. If I ever get a back tattoo, I'll bring you with me, and it'll just be like, Seth, you gotta just tell me, is this really what's happening back there?
Also, Tatum, doesn't he have a tattoo of his? Is it the All-Star MVP trophy?
Oh my God!
Is that?
I hope he does. I hope he does. I hope he does.
It's something that shouldn't be a tattoo. I think that's it.
Every year you see like something online of somebody that's like, Dallas Mavericks 2025 NBA champs, and you're like, oh yeah, that's not gonna happen. Like that's just a waste of a tattoo. I would like to think Jason Tatum every year gets a Celtics championship tattoo, and then is the guy that like has to like write over it somehow, because that really would fit the bill for me. I think that's something he would do. Just an ongoing thing. Of all the years that he's like, oh, this is the year. Oh, I guess no.
He has to black it out.
He has to black it out.
He just blacked out arms and legs.
That was my plan all along, guys. I promise. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's end it with Ashley's last mailbag question. If Giannis had to pick one Bucks player to babysit his kids for a night, who do you think he'd trust the most, and who would be the absolute last resort?
I think this is easy, and I did
I
not know
thought so
this
too.
question ahead of time.
Okay, I immediately had answers for both. What do you got?
Well, my first thought was who would he have babysit? It's Brooke Lopez, for sure. Because Brooke Lopez is a big Disney guy. And he would be able to totally dive into the Disney movies. He would be able to show these guys everything Disney to keep these kids entertained, and he would not get bored of it. Because Brooke Lopez bought property on Disney. I'm pretty sure he got married on Disney and goes there like all the time. So I think like hands down, I think Giannis and Brooke also have that relationship. So that's my number one babysitter for him. Who would be his least? Ooh, that's a tougher one. I don't know if I was prepared for that one. I guess I would probably say I'm going to go someone like Ajax or AJ Green. Only because they're young and probably don't have a lot of experience with kids. And
Tyler Smith, maybe.
yeah, there you go. Somebody that I guarantee Giannis brings his kids around the locker room quite a bit. And there's one person that feels uncomfortable or like shakes the hand of like his kids, toddler kids, or like is awkward about it. And Giannis would be like, remind me never to have you babysit my kids. So bad answer. I'm sorry, but I'm going to say one of the younger guys that probably doesn't have the experience.
All right, I'll go reverse order. I think the last person's KPJ because it takes a few years to get over the problems that he's had.
That's a good one. There you go.
So that was just my immediate answer. For some reason, I think because I'm just thinking like who's responsible. Who comes across as responsible. My first thought was PC. So in terms of like who's the first go-to, he's been around for a long time. He's very good friends with Giannis. So he's one of those guys, basically like him and Brooke, I guess, would be kind of the two. I think your answer is great. I didn't really think about the whole Disney side of it. That's perfect. I was kind of thinking responsibility, and then PC just kind of seems like, you can trust him. Like he's not going to screw up. This is going to be fine. My kid's safe with him. So yeah, that's what I had. PC.
Do you think Giannis has had any of them babysit his kids?
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so either.
I don't think Bucks players are babysitting. Just period.
Yeah, and probably not. I think to maybe what we're both thinking, like if you and I were both multimillionaires, and you're like, "Hey, Brett, can you watch my kid?" I'd be like, "Well, I'll like hire somebody to help watch your kid," but like, I'm not gonna.
You would say,
it.
"Yeah, of course, definitely," and then you would hire someone.
Yeah,
and I would never know. It's a good idea.
But really, I'm the only one that you could choose right now. Like, you don't have any other. You haven't like vetted a nanny or something. Like,
yeah.
People were like questioning, like, really? This is what you're doing?
Yeah. Thank you, Kelly and Ashley. Great questions.
Yes, thank you. Great questions. Long-time listeners.
Yes, definitely. Okay. Well, I guess the last thing I'm going to say here is there's 25% of the season remaining, and we have a tough schedule. We have 5 back-to-backs, no times of 2 consecutive nights off. And after we play the Magic this Saturday, we have a 7-game stretch that includes the Cavs, the Pacers twice, the Lakers twice, OKC, and Golden State. So it's a tough road ahead. You know what? We ended last time saying, "Hey, what do you think the Bucks are going to do in the next 3 games?" So let's ask. I don't know when we're meeting next exactly. Whatever. Let's just throw it out. The next 8 games, which is that 7-game stretch plus Orlando. What do you think the Bucks' record is?
I'm going to be a little bit different from before because obviously I tend to be very optimistic. But I'm going to go 5-3. I'm not going to say which 3 games we're going to lose, but I think 5-3. I think we're going to come out of this winning because even though the Lakers are playing really well, I think we match up very well against them. You are more the stat guy, but I don't recall Luka killing us consistently. He's great. LeBron's afraid to play us, so he's not going to play. We know that for a fact. So it's just going to be Luka and the Lakers. So I feel like we'll do all right there. OKC is going to be a big challenge, but I think we got some size and I think we got some experience to take them on. I'm going 5-3.
5-3. I like that. I think we finally beat the Cavs. I think we beat OKC. I like that matchup. I think we beat Golden State. I think we beat the Pacers and Lakers at least once. So that's 1, 2, 3. That's 5. Can we beat the Pacers twice or the Lakers twice? I don't know. I'm gonna say 6-2.
No.
And so the Magic is in there too. So I'm gonna be optimistic and say 6-2.
I like it.
Let's keep this going. They've been playing great. Top 5 defense. What are we? Third defense in the past 8 games. 4th in the past 13 games. So, just keep playing like that. Improve the offense, and I think we can do it. The Cavs can't keep winning forever, can they?
No, and I think that very optimistic. Look at what we did to Denver. Jokic is still fantastic. We know that. But we kind of dominated that game pretty easily.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say easily. I don't like to say easily. But we ran that game pretty well. And I think that we can match up with these other teams too. There's too many people that think the West is just so dominant over the East. There's no chance that we're going to win anything. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm very optimistic. We're gonna come out with more wins than losses. I think we can both agree on. But then, 5-3, 6-2. Let's see how it goes.
Excellent. Okay. Until next time, go Bucks.